Dylan Larkin has requested a trade and has now officially released a list of 3 teams he would be willing to accept a trade to: Minnesota Wild, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Florida Panthers. What do you think about him requesting a trade, and what do you think about the 3 teams that he's put in his list?
Yeah, so we talked about this yesterday on the pod, and we decided to come back and make another recording about this specifically because of this list, okay? Because I personally have a fucking problem with this. I know a lot of people in the hockey world, especially people that have YouTube channels and podcasts, won't really say these kinds of things. But first, we'll break down Dylan Larkin. He's from Michigan, born and raised there. I believe he played college hockey in Michigan too. Went to play for Detroit, obviously, gets drafted by them. He's been there for 11 years, and he hasn't made the playoffs since his rookie year. Okay, so I understand his frustration and wanting to leave the team. And if he wants to jump ship from, his hometown team and everything and try to win somewhere else, he's getting older. I understand that. That's his choice to make. Fine, fair enough. The reason that we came on today and talk about this, the reason why I'm bothered by this is because he has a no move clause in his contract. When players sign these contracts with the no moves, it's to protect the players, okay? But when a guy decides that he wants to leave his team to go somewhere else and win, and he gives them a 3 fucking team trade list, and the teams that he's given them basically have no assets to give them in return, it's ridiculous. And I'm getting concerned, and this is just the very start of this. I'm not saying this is like to this degree, but this is starting to get reminiscent, like kind of like similar to like the NBA kind of style of players getting too much power and too much control. I'm all for players, having, like, we don't want this to be like how it was back in the day where the owners just decided everything and they owned everything and they controlled all the players' rights. But I feel like this is starting to get a little too far. And maybe not this specifically, but this is a slippery slope I think that we're starting to go down here. Maybe some of these previous guys like Hughes and them wanting out, I have no problem with that, but it's starting to become more and more. And I just think it's ridiculous that this guy decided that he's going to give a 3 team list and that's it.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. 3 teams is definitely not giving them a lot to work with. So it's probably going to get to the point where Yasherman just says no. Like,
Yeah, no, if
because
if
he,
I was Yasmin right now, I'd fucking laugh at him. I'd be like, you're not going anywhere then. Get ready to learn fucking boxinese, press boxinese, because you're to fucking sit in the press box until you give me some more teams to work with. This is ridiculous. And we're gonna break down a little bit too, like these teams and like where he could go and like between these 3 and what he could give up and why they would want to acquire him, of course. But anyways, sorry to interrupt your point there, but
yeah, I mean, realistically, I think the only realistic option of the 3 teams that he requested is Minnesota. I don't really see how Vegas makes this work, considering that they want to
okay.
re-sign
Well, let's just go
Anderson
like
and
team by team here. Let's break down Minnesota first and why it makes sense for them,
sure,
and then
yeah.
we'll go to the other
Well,
teams.
first like Minnesota needs a center. That's reason number one. And secondly, out of the 3 teams, they're one of the only ones that have some assets that they can actually give up for Dylan Larkin. So I think they're the only ones who can reasonably make a trade without moving some of those pieces to stay competitive. Because if you're trading for a guy like Dylan Larkin, it's a move to be competitive, right? He's 29 years old. He's not old, but he's not young either.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Minnesota makes sense. I understand, like we said, like that's the first team that came to my mind. I think it's a good fit for both sides. Like I think there's a potential for Detroit to get stuff back that they would like, and then for Minnesota to be able to actually keep him. I still like the cap is always going to be somewhat tight. I mean, they have enough room, but they still have guys they need to re-sign. Some of their free agents this year, and they're going to have to extend Hughes as well after next year. But with the cap going up, I'm sure they can make it work. And Minnesota has made it very clear that they are like willing to do what they need to do to go out and get these players and win now. Like they were all over like people talking about like with them with Austin Matthews or Kachuk, like especially because this is an American born player. He has a connection with the GM, he has a connection with Hughes, he has a connection with Rossi, he has a connection with a lot of players and people on this team. So I understand why that's a team that he wants to go to. And it's a team that I think that Detroit could probably work a trade with. The other teams just don't make any sense.
No.
Like Vegas, okay, they have to re-sign Dorofeyev, and they just traded for Anderson. So if they want to keep him, they got to re-sign him. Both those guys are probably going to go for close to 20 million, not quite, but a little under that. But And so I don't know how you're supposed to fit in Larkin unless if you're trading Dorofeyev back the other way, which I think Detroit would be interested in, but I don't think Vegas would be interested in because Dorofeyev is a really, really good young player, and I don't see how that makes them a better team than they are now, especially because he's probably their best goal scorer, pure goal scorer, right? So I just don't see the fit there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Vegas is going to try.
Yeah,
Like, if there's one thing we know about Vegas, they will try, but they don't really have a lot of assets. They don't really have a lot of picks they can move, and they're not a team that's going to want to swap players if they think it makes them worse. And I just don't know what player they swap in this situation that both sides are happy and it makes them better, right? And then moving on to Florida, I mean, they have one of the best center trios in the league, right? They have Barkov and they have Bennett and they have Lundell. So I don't see, unless they're trading Lundell back the other way, why they're making that trade. And I don't think they would want to do that anyways. They do have the ninth overall pick this year, of course, which is a good trading chip, and that's a good piece to start for that Larkin trade. I just don't see how they make that work for Florida's side. Once again, Florida's another team that will they will explore this avenue for sure, right? But I just don't think that these teams are going to bring the return that Detroit is looking for. And I feel very strongly that Yasherman, he's known for this. He's a hard ass. Like, he's going to say, fuck off. I'm not trading you until we get what we think you're worth. And so if these are the only three teams you're going to go to, either we're going to wait until one of them is willing to pay for you because we have 5 years of control on you, or you're just going to sit in the press box. And that's what I would do if I were him, because at a certain point, like, these players, like, they don't get to just you signed a commitment for 5 years to that team, right? Like, you don't just get to fucking bail and then say, oh, but these are only the three teams I'm willing to go to, right? It's ridiculous. If you were that concerned about the team not doing well for the long term, then sign a short term deal. Do what McDavid did. You don't just get to sit here and be unhappy, but then you made this commitment. Like, you chose to make this deal, and you got to honor that. And it seems kind of dishonorable, in my opinion, to only give three teams as an option, with, like I said, all three of them not really giving you much in return, probably.
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't expect Dylan Larkin to like bend over backwards and say like, oh, like trade me to any team, but I would definitely like to see
Yeah.
him give them more than three options. I think that's especially when only one of them is realistic. So you'd like him to give more like 10 teams that he could or eight,
Yeah,
seven
something
like
more reasonable that they can both sides can work with and both sides will be happy, because there's plenty of teams that'll be interested in signing him that have younger assets, let's say like an Anaheim or Montreal or maybe a San Jose, or you know, and teams that he could go to that would be competitive where he'd have a chance to win, but they could also get a actual good return back for him that they'd be happy with, right? And I think that this kind of also shows that, in my opinion, these no move like deals are getting a little out of hand, right?
yeah.
And to be fair, like, the GMs, they sign these, so they also agreed to them as well, right? But this is not the intention of what those were for. They're not intended for players to take their teams by hostage and say you can only move, like, it's this is not the point of these things. They're meant to defend players from getting like traded to places like out of like nowhere, or traded to a place that they definitely don't want to go to, because there's a difference between being picky but only wanting to go to a few different places, and then saying, well, I don't want to go to just these ones, you know. So,
I feel like it used to be a lot more rare to see like no move clauses,
oh, it's
or
definitely, yeah,
it's like
it's
every player's got one now, or they've at least got like a 10 team, like
and like I said, there has to be responsibility and ownership from the GMs. They're the ones handing these things out,
yeah,
right? So, like, it goes both ways here. But that being said, like, this is, in my opinion, going too far. Like, this is taking advantage of something that was not meant to be that way. I'm not saying that that was his intention from the beginning. Of course not. I think Larkin signed that contract intending to play in Detroit and play it out, and that's why he signed that no move clause, so he didn't get traded. But there has to be some sort of discussion here about, like, if players are going to request trades when they have a no move clause, well, then you don't get to fucking have a no move clause anymore. Or you should at least have some sort of, like, maybe a 10 team no trade list, or a 15 no, like, no trade list. But you shouldn't be able to just say, yeah, only these three teams. But also, like, it just, yeah, I don't like it. I think that we're going to see this continue to unfold. I mean, this, like, who knows the strategy involved here from Larkin's side as well, but I definitely don't think that we're going to see him get traded anytime soon. This is the way he's going to act.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, we're just gonna have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should quickly, because we talked about this in the pod yesterday, but for people who didn't watch it, we talked about Detroit's side of this and how this affects their team. Because like we were talking about yesterday, like they've been in a very tough situation for a while now, right? I mean, I think they have the longest no playoff streak now that Buffalo made the playoffs this year. I think it's 10 years, right? So, and this is their best player, arguably. It's their captain, but he is on the older side, and they do have, some players that are more younger and closer to their prime. And we were saying yesterday, I think there is an argument to be made that trading Larkin and getting some decent young assets, like for example, if they were to trade with Anaheim and get McTavish, someone who's maybe they don't make the playoffs this year, but they can build with that. They can continue to move forward and not have to like tear it down more. Because I think Detroit fans really don't want to have to tear it down even more, right? So that's the other thing too. I don't know how lenient Detroit is going to be in trading for just future assets like picks or like really young like prospects. I think they're going to be more wanting like an actual NHL player in return. Maybe not one that's equivalent in skill, because that's probably going to be very unlikely to get, but someone who has the potential to grow into a guy like Larkin and then maybe a little bit more on top, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're hoping for as a Detroit fan. And I think that's could, like I said yesterday, be like a blessing in disguise to the team, because right now, like even if Larkin was on this team, are they a playoff team?
Yeah, I don't know.
In the Atlantic? Like, I'm not saying that they wouldn't make the playoffs. I'm not saying they don't have a chance, but like, are they really, really like, you know, gonna win the cup this year or next year, I should say, with Larkin on the team? Like, probably not.
Probably not.
Right,
No.
barring some big changes and big moves. So this could be maybe a blessing in disguise, as fucking shitty as it is right now for Detroit fans, and as blindsiding as it is after a terrible collapse. Maybe there's some light here at the end of the tunnel, but I will say it'll be very interesting to see what goes down here, because we're gonna have a bit of a, I think, dramatic ending to this for sure. It's probably gonna get. This won't be the last time we talk about this, I don't think.
Likely not.
Yeah. So, anyways, we just wanted to come on and share our thoughts and opinions on this, because we think that most people kind of just glossing it over, and it should be talked about and like kind of called out, and so.
Yeah, stay tuned to see what happens. I think we could definitely be in for a long one here for sure.